Okay, first, I want to make you aware of our non-discrimination policy statement. Caltrans will make every effort to ensure non-discrimination in all of its services, programs, and activities, whether they are federally funded or not, and that services and benefits are fairly distributed to all people, regardless of race, color, or national origin. And for more information on Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 Caltrans, please visit our website, and we will also put the link to that in the chat box. Before we dive into today's presentation, I do want to thank you all for being here today. This webinar series is part of an overall enhanced outreach and technical assistance effort Caltrans is providing to our partners to provide resources, tools, and skills to successfully compete for federal competitive funding. And our first two webinar recordings are available on our website. I recommend checking those out if you missed them. And in today's session, we will be learning about benefit cost analysis. And you may remember, as part of this webinar's registration process, we had asked you if you had any specific benefit cost questions. All those questions have been shared with our speakers, and they will be doing their best to address them during their presentations. And in addition to that, we will be posting a frequently asked questions document later on our website, but more information on that later. So now let's take a quick look at our agenda. Today's meeting is scheduled for 90 minutes, in which we will hear about the following. First, the U.S. Department of Transportation will introduce their benefit cost analysis, and then the Caltrans economics team will provide an overview of the California benefit cost analysis. And today's webinar is a little bit different than our first two, as we will be holding off for Q&A until all speakers have completed their presentations. So feel free to drop your questions into the chat while the presentations are still going, and we will answer them during the allotted Q&A time later. And lastly, at the very end, I will cover next steps and close out today's presentation. And with all that said, I will hand it over to Jordan Riesenberg and Ryan Endorf with USDOT.
All right. Hello, everybody. Just give me a moment to get our slides up. Can everybody see?
Yes.
Slide deck. All right, perfect. All right, Ryan, take it away.
Good morning. Ryan Endorf, and I'm joined here by Jordan Riesenberg. We're both economists here in the Office of the Chief Economist at USDOT, and we really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today about how the department uses benefit cost analysis as part of its discretionary grant programs. Slide, Jordan. Just starting with a definition, benefit cost analysis is a systemic process for identifying, quantifying, and comparing expected economic benefits and costs of alternative policies or actions. And we use it in a variety of ways at the department, including as part of our regulatory impact analysis, as part of infrastructure project evaluation, which is the focus of today's webinar, and then also as part of general policy analysis. Slide. We do it for a variety of reasons. First, it provides a useful benchmark from which we can evaluate and compare potential transportation investments, policies, and decisions. It also adds a degree of rigor to the project and policy evaluation process. It really helps us to focus on what exactly the project is doing and what our expected outcomes are going to be, and then allowing us to compare those to the costs of implementing those actions. And then finally, it's required often by executive orders, OMB guidance, and typically for our discretionary grant programs, it's required directly by statute. So go to the next slide. So I wanted to present this slide just to give a broad overview of our discretionary grant programs and the role that benefit cost analysis plays within them. So in the left-hand column, you'll see most of our major discretionary grant programs, RAISE, MEGA, Infra, the Large Bridge Program. And then on the right, you can see what the statutory benefit cost requirement is. So the color coding, the rows and the programs highlighted in red reflect programs that have a strict benefit cost analysis requirement, and that the department must determine that the project will be cost effective in order for it to be awarded. The programs that are in kind of the yellow tan color have a slightly softer requirement. They range from requiring the department to simply consider the extent to which the project is cost effective. And then some of the programs like the PROTECT program requires the department to prioritize projects for selection based on cost effectiveness. So one of the reasons I wanted to show this is that the role that the benefit cost analysis plays within our discretionary grant programs varies across programs. And I know that that was an area that, and one of the areas of questions was wondering how the department's application of benefit cost analysis for infrastructure programs may be different from how California does. And this is one of the ways. Go on to the next slide. So there are many, this slide really lays out several different types of benefits that we see commonly for transportation projects, the types of impacts we typically expect to see. So common benefit categories would be improved safety, of course, reducing fatalities, injuries, and property damage. Another big area of benefits would be travel time savings, primarily for projects focused on improving efficiency, reducing pollution, greenhouse gases, and emissions certainly is another major category. But you can also see projects, again, depending on type, that help reduce long-term operating or maintenance costs. A lot of transit projects could be focused on improving journey quality and comfort through improved amenities. And then for active transportation projects, such as bicycle and pedestrian type projects, you could also see health benefits. Importantly, I should say this is not an exhaustive list. There are other benefit categories out there, and you are certainly, as part of your application, welcome to include those. I think what's most important is that whatever benefits you choose to include in your analysis really need to be clearly tied to what the project scope is and what is expected to be accomplished based on the investment you're actually making. We are open to novel approaches for benefit categories that may be unique. Every project is different, so it's certainly not a requirement that every project monetize benefits in each of these categories. But mostly we just want you to focus on what is the aim of the project and present benefits that reflect that. Next slide. The question we often get is what kinds of sources of information should we be relying on as we develop a benefit cost analysis? And I think first and foremost, you would want to start with the planning and engineering documents for the project that you have proposed, because those are really important for establishing what your current baseline is, identifying what the problem you're trying to solve is, and then what exactly the project is going to do and the time frame that it's going to be done on. From there, identifying the affected population that is going to benefit from this improvement, using traffic counts, travel survey data, maybe industry references, particularly if you're working with a private partner. You can make use of federal, state, and local data sets. The department has several, as well as the states that might have ADT counts or traffic counts that might also have safety data that would be relevant to include. Our USDOT BCA guidance, which we'll talk about later on in the presentation, is another good resource. It has a number of monetization factors that you can use and outlines an approach for how you would want to get started on the analysis. Finally, other relevant sources, again, if you're working with private partners, they may have information, especially on use, like the railroads, for example, that could be particularly handy in terms of setting up the analysis. Next slide. So the department has a number of resources that we do provide on our website. First and foremost, the department has a benefit cost analysis guidance that is applicable for all of our discretionary grant programs. So it will be consistent no matter which program you apply to at the department. We do update this annually. So our last update was December 2023, and we'll see probably in the next several months, we will be issuing a new update. This document provides an overview of benefit cost analysis, how to get started, and includes several recommended methodologies. And then there's a section in the back that has recommended input values for a number of areas, including the value of travel time, value of statistical life, value for injuries, values for emissions. So a really good resource And I'll note that those are national level values, so they may differ from what Caltrans uses as an example. So that's another area that you may see different numbers when doing an analysis for the same program. So I do want to highlight that. And then finally, in the appendices, we have sample calculations that I think are a good reference point for you to use in terms of how to actually make the calculations for the analysis. The department provides significant technical assistance for pretty much all of our discretionary grant programs. We typically offer several webinars, and the videos are usually and recordings are usually posted on the specific program pages on our website. For prior applicants, we offer debriefs following each round of the programs, and we're happy to answer questions there. And then finally, each of the grant programs has an email address, and we respond, happy to respond to any questions that we receive via those inboxes. Finally, the department has a number of data sets that we would point to as resources for you to utilize as part of your analysis. First, the NHTSA fatality analysis reporting system includes basically a database of all the fatalities, traffic fatalities that occur. So that's a source that typically we will cross-check when we are reviewing analyses submitted to our discretionary grant programs. The Crash Modification Factors Clearinghouse is a great resource for identifying crash reduction factors that may be applicable to your projects. FRA's Rail Crossing Inventory and Accident Database is a good repository of accidents at grade crossings, and may also include rail traffic at those grade crossings. And then finally, FHWA has both the National Bridge Inventory and the Highway Performance Monitoring System, both of which provide information on condition, traffic levels for bridges, the detour routes that would be applicable, and is another area that we typically cross-reference as we are reviewing applications. Next slide, please. This slide just kind of outlines more or less a process of how you would want to go about setting up and developing your benefit cost analysis. First step, and then the most important one really, is to first establish what is the baseline condition, and then identify the problem that you're attempting to solve, and what is the way you're going to solve it. What is the investment that you're making. From there, you can estimate the cost of that investment, and then you move on to basically identifying the affected population and identifying in particular the expected impacts based on that investment relative to those baseline conditions. Once you have those impacts, you can monetize them, and again, using our benefit cost analysis guidance, we have those recommended monetization factors across a number of common benefit categories, and then you would convert those into present value using discounting and estimate a benefit cost ratio. The final step would be to think about, are there any unquantified benefits that for whatever reason you didn't have enough information to quantify, but are relevant to reflect as part of the application and the overall analysis. It may be that you don't have a good sense of how large the affected population is. It may be that there isn't really a common monetization factor, but those are still worth noting because they provide upward uncertainty, I suppose, for any sort of project. Next slide, please. Benefit cost analyses should be transparent and reproducible. We only know as much information as is typically provided to us, and we certainly, as reviewers, will look online and try to find additional sources of information. But the more information that you can provide to us, you know your project better than we do, and so the more that you provide, the easier it is for us to follow along. Spreadsheets certainly showing the calculations, not just hard-coded values, are incredibly useful to us. And a technical memo that describes the analysis and documents the sources of information used, any analytical choices you've made, certainly the assumptions you've made, is a really important resource for providing some color or context to what you might be showing in your spreadsheets. Next slide, please. So in terms of approaching a spreadsheet, you have a few different options. You can develop your own from scratch, and that's certainly a valid option. We've seen many applicants do. There are existing spreadsheet tools and templates that are available from many sources. Obviously, CalBC is a great option for some applicants. Some consulting firms have made tools or their spreadsheets publicly available. So those could be an option. And then a question we get asked a lot is whether we can share BCAs from prior submissions to our discretionary grant, previous rounds of our grant programs. And unfortunately, we can't. We take the position that those analyses are the property of the applicants themselves that submitted them, and so it's not ours to share. But I will note that many project sponsors do post their entire application packages online, including their benefit cost analyses, and so those can be found through web searches and could be a resource if you're looking for an example of a prior submission. Finally, the department did in recent years, in the last couple of years, develop a BCA spreadsheet template that as a resource to basically help applicants get started in their BCA. We'll talk about it on the next slide, so why don't you move on, Jordan? So the BCA template is an optional template. You're certainly not required to use it. You can use any spreadsheet you'd like, but we did want to provide this. It's open-ended, so it can handle any project type. You will need to put the calculations in there, but it does handle some of the common calculations, such as discounting of each of the benefits to help you out. It is organized with separate tabs based on some of those major benefit categories that I mentioned before. And the template itself is available on our website. You can see from the link here. And we do have a tutorial webinar available at this link. It's actually through the RAISE grant program that walks through how you would actually set up and use that template to organize an analysis. I'll also mention that FHWA has a bridge investment program BCA tool that supports the estimates of bridge preservation or replacement projects. It uses a macro to bring in data directly from the National Bridge Inventory, so it's a really good resource for any sort of bridge project you have. I would say it is only applicable to bridge projects, so that is a limitation, but it is a really useful tool that we found in our experience for being able to check information quickly, and because it brings directly in that National Bridge Inventory data, it reduces the need to search for it yourself online. So next slide.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Can everyone still hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay,
we can.
perfect, thank you. So we like to go over just a simple BCA example. If you've never seen a BCA before, we like to walk folks through one from start to finish just to understand the process. So in this hypothetical example, right, we have a highway corridor that's been built between two neighborhoods. You can see the grid on each side, and our proposed project here in this hypothetical example will be to add a new bike and pedestrian bridge over the freeway to reconnect the local neighborhoods on each side. And we'll say that our hypothetical project here cost $10 million. So first, we have to define our no-build scenario. So, just to illustrate here on the left, we have an existing bike facility on one side of the freeway, an existing bike facility on the other. We have our project location where this green dashed line is. But under the no-build, without this project, the current cyclists and pedestrians would have to continue to use a different route crossing under the freeway. And we'll say that, maybe we have some data on, survey data, or travel survey data, or trail counters in this case that suggests that about 1,000 cyclists are doing this route daily. Under the build scenario, we'll build this bridge that's only going to be 0.1 miles long. And this will allow our cyclists to have a shorter route, at least for those who would be traveling across the freeway and would otherwise have to travel back north. So our no-build scenario route in this example is 2.5 miles longer than the build scenario route, right? Because our no-build, our cyclists would have to travel 2.6 miles to detour around this area. And once we open up this new bridge, they'll only have to go 0.1 miles. So they'll save 2.5 miles in travel distance. So our approach, we want to compare the state of the world with and without the proposed project improvement. So under the no-build scenario, as we said, cyclists would continue to use the 2.6 mile route. Under the build scenario, right, the bridge opens, it provides this shortcut route that's only 0.1 miles. So we would expect that in this example, the major benefit categories would be the travel time savings for mitigating 2.5 miles of additional travel. And these benefits would begin when the project opens. So to show you an example of how you would calculate the travel time savings, just for simplicity to keep this example short, we're going to assume that there's not pedestrians, right? And if you were doing this project, you would have some assumptions about pedestrians. We're just pretending for a minute that we're just talking about the cyclists. We'll assume an average cycling speed of 9.8 miles an hour, and we'll assume that there's no cycling growth over time to keep the math simple. Again, in the real world, if you were doing this example, you might assume that every year, you know, if the area is growing, maybe there would be more cyclists over time. So to calculate the annual travel time savings in a different year, this is before we discount them, it would be the marginal detour time times the daily number of users. So, you know, how much extra are people having to travel in time? How many people does it affect? We'll need some hourly value of time. So we'll need a way to convert the time to dollars so that it's comparable to costs and other benefits in the BCA. And because we need annual, we need to decide some sort of annualization factor for this, since we're using the daily users. So for the marginal detour time, right, that's just the distance divided by the speed. And in this case, the amount of distance saved is, you know, 2.6 miles, 2.6 under the no build. It'll be 0.1 under the build, so we'll save 2.5 miles. We'll divide that by the speed, which we're going to use 9.8 miles an hour. We'll say that that was the, you know, observed average speed on both routes. Daily users, we said that was 1,000. We said that came from a recent trail count. We'll need an hourly value of time, and you can find this in our BCA guidance in Appendix A, which contains a lot of the different monetization values for all sorts of different benefit categories. And there are travel time monetization values for different types of travel, business, personal, all-purpose, and there's also one specific to cycling, walking, waiting, and transfer time, and that's $35.80 per hour. And then our annualization factor, we'll use 365. You might ask yourself, why would we assume anything different? Well, you could imagine that there are project types, such as those addressing, you know, peak period congestion, for example, where perhaps the benefits only accrue on weekdays or, you know, non-holiday, non-weekend days of the year. So perhaps in some cases, you would use a lower annualization factor. But for this example, right, we're going to assume that, you know, that daily average users was, you know, the average over an entire week. And so we would expect that this project would have an impact each day and not just on weekdays. So we'll use 365. So when we do this math, we get about $3.3 million per year in undiscounted travel time savings. So our next step is to actually put this into a benefit cost analysis. So to do this, we're going to assume that construction occurs in the year 2025. We're going to use 10 years of project operations. If you actually read our BCA guidance, for different types of projects, we usually recommend between 20 and 30 years, depending on the project type, and you can read more about that in the guidance. The only reason I'm using 10 here is so that the table is small or big enough that we can still see the font on the screen. So you can just imagine, to do a full BCA, that this table would just go down for an additional number of years. We're also going to assume that there's about $10,000 in annual maintenance costs for the project. So, you know, here when we set up our BCA, you'd probably be doing this in some sort of a spreadsheet program. Our capital costs here occur in the year 2025, $10 million. And our travel time savings, notice we don't get any until after the project's finished, because that's when folks using the facility will start to save travel time. And it's going to occur, you know, each year once after the project opens. And because we assume no growth, just for simplicity, that this number is the same as we go down year by year. And then, as we said, there'll be $10,000 in O&M costs that will be incurred again after the project opens and is in service. The next step, and we'll obviously, I think our California folks are going to post these slides, so don't panic. Like, you need to write all of this down. But we're going to do what we call discounting. So our next step is we discount costs and benefits using a 3.1% discount rate. The discounting formula is equal to the value in the future year that it occurs divided by 1 plus the discount rate. And then that's going to be raised to the power of, or up in the exponent. It's going to be the future year minus our base discounting year. So for our base discounting year, at least in our current guidance, we're using 2022. That's the dollar year that we've asked applicants to put all their dollar values in terms of 2022 dollars. So to make it simple, we also just treat the base discounting year as 2022. That will be updated, next year. It'll probably be 2023. So to apply discounting, we have to first discount our costs. So our future year value in 2025 is this $10 million in capital cost. And then we do this discounting formula. So we divide by 1 plus the discount rate. So that's that discount rate, remember, we said is 3.1%. So it's 1 plus, 0.031 here in the parenthesis. And then in the exponent, we want to take our future year, that's the year in which this cost is occurring, 2025, minus the base discounting year, which we said was 2022, right? And when you do this formula, you get discounted costs at about $9.1 million. Similarly, for the benefits, we're going to treat the O&M costs as a disbenefit. So we're going to subtract the O&M costs from the travel time savings in each given year. And so for the year 2026, doing this row here, we have our travel time savings minus our O&M costs. So this is the travel, the 3.3 million in travel time savings minus the $10,000 in O&M costs for that year. This is going to be our future value. This is the value in this year 2026 for this row. And again, it's going to be the same as before. We're going to divide by 1 plus the discount rate. That's 1 plus 3.1%. That's in parentheses here. And then in the exponent, we'll do the future year minus the base discounting year. So in this row, the future year is 2026. And the base discounting year stays the same. That's still just 2022. So when we do this math, we get discounted benefits in the year 2026 of about 2.9 million. Now, we're going to do this for every single row. And there's a pretty consistent pattern, right? So here I have another call out box on the bottom for the year 2035. And in that row, right, it's the same thing. It's our future benefits in the year 2035. So that's the same, it's our travel time savings minus the O&M costs. Then again, divided by 1 plus the discount rate, just like before. So 1 plus about 3.1%. And then raised to the power of, and then the future year, which in this row is 2035, minus the base discounting year, which again, as in all of these calculations, is 2022. So when we do that in the year 2035, we get discounted benefits about 2.2 million. So you can see the further in time we go, the discounted benefits get a little smaller due to discounting. So the same benefit further in the future is worth less than benefits that are closer in time to the present. And I'll just note that some of the totals that we're about to do might differ a tiny bit due to rounding. But once we've done this, we want to sum the discounted benefits and costs to get the total discounted benefits and the total discounted costs. So discounted costs in this example is easy. It's just 1 year. So our total discounted costs are 9.1 million. Discounted benefits, right? We would add the stream of future benefits together, which in this example is about 25.7 million. And then next, we want to calculate the net present value and the benefit cost ratio, which we often abbreviate to NPV and BCR. So our net present value is going to be equal to the total discounted benefits, which on the last slide we estimated to be 25.7 million, minus the total discounted costs, which were 9.1 million approximately. When we subtract 9.1 million from 25.7 million, we get a net present value of about 16.6 million. To calculate the benefit cost ratio, it's actually similar. It's just instead of subtracting, we're just going to divide. So we take our total discounted benefits and we divide by the total discounted costs. So our total discounted benefits, as we said from the last slide, it was about 25.7 million. We divide that by the total discounted costs, which are about 9.1 million. And when we do this division, we get a benefit cost ratio of about 2.8. So this was just a hypothetical. We calculated a single benefit category. However, there are many other benefits that such a project might have, right? You can imagine it would also provide travel time savings for pedestrians. So in that case, the math would actually be pretty similar to the travel time savings we did for cyclists, but we would have different assumptions about their speed. We'd have different assumptions about the number of users, but otherwise it would be sort of analogous. There could be mortality reduction benefits from any induced walking and cycling trips, right? We've made it easier to walk and cycle. We would expect that more people would then do so. There could be reduced emissions if there's any mode shift to active transportation from other modes. There could be amenity benefits. For example, if the no-build route didn't already have some sort of dedicated cycling or pedestrian facility and the build route does, there could be benefits of providing those facilities. There could be safety benefits if there's shorter walking and cycling distances for existing users. And there could also be some residual value of some leftover service life after the analysis period. So this isn't meant to be an exhaustive list. There could be others and it's project specific, but it's just to give you an idea of the types of benefits that we might expect from this hypothetical example. Real quickly, just avoiding some common mistakes. Make sure that the inputs and assumptions for your BCA are sourced and documented. So don't just post if you have an estimate of the daily number of users, tell us where you got that from. Make sure that your assumptions are clear. And if it's not obvious where they're coming from, give us the source where you got that information so we can go back to the original source and confirm some of the inputs to the analysis. Make sure that the BCA you're submitting and the claim benefits actually match the project that's proposed for the grant funding. And show us how your project achieves the benefits you're claiming. If you have different separable project components, you may want to do multiple BCAs that show the individual utility of different pieces of the project. And lastly, please provide us unlocked BCA spreadsheets. Please don't send us just a PDF of a spreadsheet, right? We want to be able to dig in and look into your project and be able to follow the calculations. And a PDF isn't always helpful in helping us to do that. So, help us help you and send an unlocked BCA spreadsheet when you're submitting. And with that, I will turn it back over to our California colleagues and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jordan and Ryan. That was definitely very helpful. And just a quick reminder, we are holding off questions until all of our speakers are done presenting, but feel free to add some questions into the chat and we will answer them during our Q&A session. And moving on, I'm gonna share my screen first here. Okay, so moving on, our next speakers are Gilberto Chambers and Thuy Nguyen with Caltrans Economics. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. This is Gilberto Chambers. I'm the Transportation Economics Branch Chief here at Caltrans. Today, Thuy and I will be presenting CalBC. That's the tool we use here in our state. And just before that, I would like to move briefly to the next slide. Here, I want to give you a little idea of what we do here in the Transportation Economics Branch. Basically, we service the state, the districts. Caltrans has 12 districts all over the state, and we do service various projects and different activity that takes place. But we also work with our partners and also our fellow agents, agencies, and we work with the federal as well too in different type of projects and the public, of course. Obviously, there's a process of requesting our services, and we get various requests that comes in different forms as well. Generally, we have an inbox where people contact us on our website and they ask us different questions or ask for a specific service, and then we will evaluate and see within our possibilities what can we do that. And of course, we produce a transportation investment analysis, of course, in long-term statewide planning, economic impact assessment of projects, financial analysis, special reports, research, and some subject matter expert advice as well too. But going back to the topic that why we're here for today, which is CalBC. Next slide. CalBC has been around since the early 90s. So it's over 30 years old right now too, right? It started up basically as an Excel spreadsheet. Over the years, there have been several modifications and different changes, and it evolved to be what we call a sketch tool. Later on, some changes have been made to incorporate corridor analysis as a separate model as well, active transportation, park and ride, and freight, intermodal freight. So we have a suite of 5 tools that they're interconnected. They're basically the same spreadsheet environment, and the information that goes within one can also be transferred to the other different tools as well. Right now, we in version 8.1. Last update was done in 2021, and we are looking forward to do another update pretty soon. Right now, of course, the CalBC model is a 20 years horizon that we use to conduct our analysis. As it was explained with FSW, they recommend 20 to 30 years for some project analysis. However, it can be extended the way we have it, or it can be reduced basically according to the project that we are evaluating. Not every project is the same, as we said before, but that's the tool that we have. Next slide. So what is it that we're trying to find in the benefit cost analysis tool? Of course, CalBC tool was created especially for highway and transportation projects. And many of the things that we have seen here is that people try to box all the projects within this suite. CalBC cannot do all the analysis, and we will explain that a little more as we talk just now. But the idea here is to identify what are the benefits of your projects. Generally, here we're talking about different type of benefits for transportation projects. We're talking about operation costs, travel time savings, safety, emissions. We're talking about also or capital cost or O&M costs as well. And just as the example was done in before, we try to monetize this information. We discount both benefits and costs, and we obtain a ratio. The idea here that the benefit cost ratio should be 1 or above. We have seen projects where the benefit cost is below 1. Maybe it have a great social component, and there are other decisions why maybe that project was selected. But generally, our criteria is the project has to be at least 1 and above to be able to qualify. Here, for instance, we use it to prioritize projects most of the time. We also use it as a way of allocating resources. We use a discount rate of 4%. FHW use 3.1%. Some of their projects in the past, they use 7%. But again, our discounts are set for 1%. Whenever we do the federal projects or grants, we modify our tool to fit and match whatever the FHW guidance say. So that's what we do in terms of some common features of our model is that, CalBC is a very straightforward tool. It's a spreadsheet with some macros incorporated, and there are formulas behind it tied that connect and do the division and the analysis automatically for us. So as a result of that, we have a very simple tool that information is entered within basically 3 to 4 spreadsheets, as we will see later on. Next slide. So here are some of the parameters that we look for in terms of the CalBC. We highway parameters, and here you have some of the sources where we can find those parameters for each one of them that we have on this page. We have some active transportation parameters as well, economic parameters, fuel consumption, accidents, health parameters, and transportation management system parameters. Within our guide on our website and within the CalBC guide, you have all these sources, and we try to verify whenever information comes to us. We verify as well to see if when you're presenting, requesting information for us or asking us to review your project, you are using these sources and you're correctly inputting this information within the system. So here is where we get some of our parameters as well, and this information will be available. So no need to panic at this moment. Next slide. So what can CalBC do or cannot do? Obviously, CalBC is not a project, it's not a tool that can do every single project. As I said before, it was built for transportation, highway and transit projects. Initially, there are some rail projects that can be done as well here and some freight projects. However, they're all linked to transportation. Lately we have seen a lot of requests for EV, electric vehicle, ZEB, and so forth, climate change projects that CalBC cannot necessarily do. However, some of the parameters that we have there can be used to create your own spreadsheet and your own template to be able to incorporate it within your analysis. Of course, CalBC cannot do economic analysis because it's project-based. However, we are working on a way to integrate the result from our CalBC to be automatically imported in Tretis, which is another tool that we use to do economic impact analysis. And this will give us a broader picture of how your project affects the economy or the region wherever your project is located. We also do, for instance, define based on the project how that can contribute to jobs and so forth. So we have other tools that we use to complement our analysis, like Implan is another tool as well too. So next slide, please. Yeah, so how does CalBC work? As we said, it's a suite Excel spreadsheet that's intercommunicated as well. The information is entered on the different spreadsheets, which we're going to provide now with an example as well. And as the information is entered, it starts to populate automatically and pull from different sources. Can you advance, please? Yeah, thank you. So basically, we're talking about when you log on our page, we have an instruction table there that provide you what information you can put in, what each cell does mean, and so forth. So one of the first thing we have is a project information tab. We have the model outputs as well. We have the calculations and the parameters tab. All these tables interconnect and pull from the other. At the end, you're going to see a result of how it works. Next slide. So starting point, input sheet. Someone contact us and say, we need your help to do an evaluation of our projects. We are trying to do this analysis, so we provide, or they can download the input sheet where it tells you what information is needed in the project. Depends on the type of project. You populate that information with this, whatever information you put in there, we can pull that information and put it in the project for sheet, right? So generally we use this for the infra, the build, the raise projects as well, adjusting the parameters according to FSW guidelines. And if it's for California SB1 projects, is based on the guideline we have established in California Transportation Commission as well. Next slide. So secondly, the project information tab. Once you identify the information that you need, you come to this first page and you enter your information. You define your type of project, your location, your length of the project as well, and then you start to put in your highway information, your traffic information, your safety information. That information start to automatically populate, creating a result that we will see in the other page. Next slide. Once you have this information identified, you also have to include here your project costs as well, right? You enter whether it be the information for design, whether it be right of way, whether it be from construction. Generally, those happen before the project starts, and you will always do that. Later on, you will enter your maintenance costs as well, and maybe you have some mitigation costs that need to be incorporated. So that information is entered in this spreadsheet, and of course, they're all discounted. At the end, we're going to be having discount costs, discount benefits. That will be the source of our next slides as well. So if generally CalBC will populate the information for you in the blue lines, blue boxes, that will be if you have better information, then you can overwrite the information that we present. Our information is based on averages for our state, but if you have information that it said otherwise, maybe you have a recent research or there's a study that's showing what's going on in your area, you can overwrite those data in the green boxes. Then the final box that will be taken in account for the analysis will be those in the gray boxes. Next slide. At the end, you will have a final calculation tab, which is going to be a summary of all the different benefits and costs discounted, and that will give you the information you need to proceed to the final calculation. Next. So this is the final result tab, and to me, this is my favorite tab because here we have all the information that we need in our analysis. We have different sections on this page. We have, for instance, to give you information of your life cycle, your costs, your benefits, your net present value, your benefit cost ratio, of course, return on investment and your payback period. Then it will also give you the chance. Can we go back to that slide just a second? Yeah, thank you. It will also give you the chance if you need, for instance, to define induced travel. If you want to see your operating costs, your accident costs, then you will check yes on those variables. Then in the benefit section, you will get the benefit, whether it be travel time, vehicle operation costs, accident emissions. You will get the savings identified in those, and below you'll find the emission costs, whether your project is benefit emissions or is almost bringing on more emissions to us. Next one. Thank you. And so here we are trying to do some updates on the CalBC. What we have seen in the last cycles, districts and partners are requesting projects and support for projects that are not only transportation related, they have something to do with transportation, but they also have more to do with climate change. Maybe it have to do with electric vehicles that are coming out now as well. Parking stations, they have a lot to do with active transportation. And we have seen a lot of different improves out there of different consultants that when they present their active transportation tables, we see a lot of benefits they're claiming that maybe we are not claiming, or maybe FHW is not claiming as well. So we think that we need to upgrade CalBC to kind of include some of these benefits. We see MFAC tables. The MFAC tables, we don't do it by ourselves. We work closely with the Air Resources Board. Whatever changes they do on their side, we always try to incorporate it within our model. The same thing with safety updates. Caltrans have been working with traffic operations to do some safety changes in categories as well, and we are incorporating those changes as well. We want to do some equity considerations. A lot of projects have to do with equity as well. We want to do some changes with the metrics. We think that the results table can be enhanced if we include some categories with some metrics that will give us some better information. We have seen rail projects have been increasing, also the request to review rail projects, and we are working to do some changes with rail. Also, the instructions sheet, we are trying to make it a little more simpler, maybe a little clearer. And we are debating a little bit, and we are doing some researches in terms of what is better for us, or what should we do in terms of CalBC? Do we create a tool that is online, 100% online, or we do an Excel-based tool that people can download, do their information, and present it to us? I think this question, I'm going to come back at the end of our presentation and ask you guys some input on that and see what you guys think will be best. Online version of the CalBC or a regular Excel the way we have it now, but just maybe enhancing it a little bit to make it a little more modern and so forth. So yeah, this will be for now my intervention until we continue with a demonstration.
Everybody, my name is Thuy Nguyen, and I will be the presenter for the economic demonstration part of the CalBC. Can you guys see my screen?
We can.
So like Gilberto said, on our transportation economics of Caltrans, there's a whole suite of CalBC modules, and they're instructional videos and online training. So if a person is doing a application for federal grant, you can download a fresh template and make sure you download the infer version of the CalBC, because we have a regular CalBC template that is set up for SB1 for grants like within California specific. But if you're doing federal grant like infer and raise, you want to get to the infer and raise template. And the version that we're on is 8.1. So CalBC has multiple tabs, and some of the most important tabs are in the front of the CalBC. So we have the instructions, we have project information, we have model inputs, and then we have result. So for the demo today, I will do a typical, very simple general highway construction. I'm going from conventional to expressway, and my project involves some safety improvements. So I hope to gain some safety improvements out of my benefit analysis. So the CalBC is very simple. It starts with box like 1A, 1B, 1C, and it's go down, and then it's also from left to right. So basically, you just open the first tab, project information, and Gilberto mentioned the input. Once you have the input, you can use that and start populate these on the project information tab. So when you drag down on the project type, there are highway capacity and expansion, highway improvement, rail expansion, and rail improvement. So I know that for mine, it's going to be a general highway expansion project. So I just choose that. Project location, it gives you choices: Northern California, Southern California, or rural. And these have to do with the density of the freeway, and it affect the calculation of the speed and of the overall project model. So I will do 2 for Northern California. I know that my construction period, when it said length right here, I think this is length in time wise, not the length of the project. I've seen people input the wrong information. So the length of construction is in years. So you want to put in the year. So mine is 2 year. And the red. Oh, I want to mention that on CalBC, the green fields are user required inputs. The blue fields are model populated inputs, recommended values. But if you have better actual data, you can override these. Let's say you have better local accident data, you have better traffic data due to, you get it from PEMS, performance enhancement measure system, or you have it from your travel demand model. You can more than welcome override it in the blue field. The red one are basically formularized, so we don't recommend changing the red field. So next box is the highway design. So I'm going from a conventional highway with 2 lane each direction going on to an express. So I'm going to put in my design, C for convention, E for express. Currently right now in my no build, I have 2 lane. 2 lane. And in the built scenario, I will have 4 lane. Okay. And then my project doesn't involve any HOT or HOV. So I will skip all that section there. Highway free flow speed right now is 55. And by the time I do my improvement and everything, I hope to gain some speed based on the study model. So I'm going to assume 65 per hour for that. The highway segment, this is where you put your length of your project. So for my project is 6.1 miles, and it automatically calculate the impact lane at 6.1. If some project, your highway segment is different than your impacted segment, for instance, like the ramps, or you're more than welcome to put in the different or correct length of your impacted. You can override this impacted length. Okay. The average daily traffic, this is the traffic data. So some of our CalBC required data, and I recommend users to gather all these data ahead of time before you come and use the model. So the traffic data, you can typically get it from your traffic ops or the travel demand group, and they can give you your current AADT. So you need the current ADT, and you need the forecasted 20 years AADT. And the base year, the middle line, the model will default and will populate that for you. So you only need the current, which is 16,335. And we have that on Caltrans under the census website, and you can download the booklet and you can pick up the ADT from there. Okay, so you have that. You put that in. Again, no HOT or no HOV involved, so I will ignore that. No weaving is involved. The model default to 9% trucks. In some area like Northern California District 1, we're hearing that trucks are increasing. It could be 10%, 13%. So if you have a different data for a truck, you are more than welcome to override that, but it does default to 9%. The speed, if you have a different speed than 55 miles per hour, you can default that too. So that is for the traffic data box. Down here, I want to call your attention to the information that makes our model a little bit different than the US DOT model. So this is the infra, and every year, as soon as US DOT came out with the benefit cost guidance for that year, we go in and we take our state CalBC templates and we change them into infra, and we take into consideration of the AVO, the average vehicle occupancy. And so the US DOT is somewhat higher than ours. The recommended value is 1.58, and R is 1.48 for peak, and non-peak is 1.58, and peak is 1.48 for US DOT. R is 1.32 and 1.15. So California has slightly lower AVO in general. Next, highway crash data. So in order to do analytical for the CalBC, you need some accident data, and the actual 3-year data for California, you can obtain it from Caltrans Traffic Ops. So you can input the information there. If you don't have it, you can use the statewide basic. And we do have a collision on the highway data booklet on Caltrans website, and you can download that as well. And you can, look at your highway rates and the percentage of fatality, and it will also feed into the model, and it would calculate your saving costs or this benefit for you. So for the total crash for this one that I have, based on my data collection, I know that I have 63 total accident. Fatal crash, I know I had 6 in the past 3 years, and injury, I have 25. So it automatically put the remaining from the 63 into the property damage, the PDO blue box for me, so I don't have to do the math on that. Okay, so for the statewide, typically a person would have to know the highway layout and look it up on the booklet, and they would have to know what are the highway layout going from a built to a no built. So for the crash rate for my no built would be the 2, 3, 5, 40%. And so because due to my study, my project is involving a little safety feature. So there's a safety feature, and also on the crash modification factor website, depending on the type of project, you can deduct some of that from the CMF factor and come up with your future. So my project involved like a median barrier, because right now conventional doesn't have it. So we have a little safety. So therefore, based on the study, I can claim some deduction on my future rate. And so my future rate would go down a little bit, and the percentage also go down. Okay, so that's for my accident. My project now doesn't involve any rail or transit data, so I can typically skip the whole box 1D and going over to the cost section. Here is when you put the cost. So your total costs have to do with project support costs, right of way, and construction. And there are specific fields that you can put that in. So for my pre-construction costs, I have that for the first year, 6342 for the second year. Right of way is 5770, and these are in the unit 1,000. Okay, so when you're doing it, make sure you have your zero in line, because the model can only fit so many digits, but these are representative in 1,000. Okay, and typically once the facility is constructed, you have to maintain that segment of the highway. So either you have operating and maintenance costs, or you have rehab costs for bridges. So I know that I just have maintenance costs for my segment. I don't have any rehab costs. So it will be 115 for the next 20 year, and you can copy it down. Okay, so that's it. That everything, I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see everything is pretty much populated on the first tab. The model input, Gilberto touch on this. So basically, this field here is a user option. For beginning user, we don't recommend you overwrite any data. If you're an advanced user, or you have a better micro simulation, travel demand model, and better counts of your freeway layout and accident data, you're more than welcome to put whatever you want on here, and it will override the model. One thing I do want to stress is that once you do that, once you override, you need to document your reason for change and the source of where your change is coming from, because we have a lot of questions from USDOT, once the application is submitted, and people just randomly putting value but no documenting, and that could be the cost for your markdown on your grant application. Okay, so that's the thing that you want to do. You make sure, if you overriding, make sure you state your source. So now we're on to the result tab. And so this is the result tab once the model is calculated. So on the left-hand side is mostly your general information about the standing status of your BCA. And so in this project, your benefits is 2.5 times more than your costs. So this is a very feasible project, and therefore your benefit cost ratio is 2.5. So you do get a lot of benefits out of, you outweigh your costs. So this is a doable project. You have a very good rate of return on investment, 13.6%, which is very good. The payback period is 7 years. That's not too bad. I've seen projects that take maybe like 10, 15, 25, especially the rail project. It could take longer to recoup the cost that you put out upfront. So this is very good. On the right-hand side, these are the typical itemized benefit that most of our CalBC module would produce. Some modules, like the active transportation, would have a little more like a journey quality. The intermodal freight would have a little bit more like a shipper freight cost. But for the sketch and the corridor, the benefits are pretty much the same. So we have some travel time saving, and out of that, we have travel time reliability. We have vehicle operating costs, accident saving costs. So I want to talk a little bit about the accident saving costs. So earlier when I mentioned that I think my build scenario would have some saving because I am putting in a safety barrier in the divider for my project, and these are my safety as a future. The rate will go down. I would have less fatal crashes and less injury crashes in percentages, right? So my CalBC did demonstrated that. And as you can see, the accident saving is a huge chunk out of this benefits cost. There are some negative costs, vehicle operating costs, and a negative emission. But if you look at the overall, it's only single digit compared to double digit or triple digit as far as the benefit goes. And typically with expansion project, the highway expansion project, because like the saying said, when you build, they will come. People will tend to drive more if they know this is a better condition and you can improve some time. So your VMT tend to go up a little bit. Of your vehicle operating costs would go up a little bit because people drive more, and the emission, of course, because more car, more bad emission would be released into the air. So that's just a fact of life, But overall, this is still a very good project. Consider, the benefits and the saving that we have. So these are monetized in dollars, and then underneath, these are emission reduction in quantify in basically like the social cost of carbon for the society. So it's broken in carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrate oxide, particle matters, and so on and so forth. And each of these have the annual column average, and then also is the total accumulated over 20 years. Okay, and the way the CalBC work, I want to talk a little more about it, is that once you put in the information on your project information tab, each of the travel time has its own calculation. So you can hover over the formula or the protocol, and you can see where it's very transparent. You can trace out the dependent values and all that. And each of the tab, reliability, vehicle, did their own calculation, and they put it into the final calculation tab. And so from the final calculation, it would feed into the result tab. So that's how everything works. And then at the end, we have the parameters. And this is where our parameter from the infra is different than our normal state CalBC template, because we follow the USDOT benefit cost guidance of the year. I think it came out, Ryan showed is December 2023, but sometime it came out in 2024, January earliest, beginning of the year. So we went in and we read the whole booklet, and whatever value that we can have, we would put that in, and then we would change the economic deflator. The real discount value, is 3.1. On our state CalBC is 4.0. A couple of years ago, USDOT, I think they had 7%. So we have to change that to 7% on the infra template. Everything else also came from the USDOT guidance. If there's any difference between ours, we would bring up the value to make it more updated. Accident costs, fatality, fuel, gas, I think the only thing that a little bit different than ours is the active transportation, because we have our own way of calculating active transportation and the benefit, the mortality, and the rates of cyclists year saving due to health and journey and all that. So our active is a little bit different, but the rest of the module should pretty much similar to USDOT benefit cost guidance. And if you scroll over to the right, it has all these values. And the AMFAC table we have, as soon as California Air Resource Board has some new model built in with the zero emission vehicle, we apply that to our year. So now it's 2024 model year, and the future is 2044. And as you can see, in the old model, they didn't have a whole lot of saving. They were at this benefit because there were a lot of a combustible engine car still on the road. So if the car is standing still idling or at below 10, 15 miles, the emission would be bad. And then if as the car speed up between 65 miles and above, they would be they would lose some emission. So with the new model now, a lot of zero emission, the ZEF car are coming into play. So by 2043, SB 743, most of these would be like, it doesn't make any difference. You're not gaining a whole lot anymore out of the MFAC model, because everything would be leaning toward the ZEF cars. So if you look at the difference between this model and the 7.1 version of the CalBC, there's significant difference in the MFAC. And that's it. That's all I have for my CalBC. And we have a whole suite online. We have training booklets. We have training video on our website. And our CalBC has a lot of information. It can be time consuming, but I believe that if anybody put time out and try to learn the CalBC, everybody can conduct a benefit cost analysis. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you both so much. I definitely learned a lot. Let me share my screen. All right, so I know today's webinar is a lot more technical, so I'm sure there are questions. And quick reminder, you can either post your question in the chat or you can raise your hand. And if we don't get to your question, we will follow up with you, so definitely post them in a chat. And I will hand it over to Ryan and Jolena to help with the facilitation.
Let's start with Jolena to start with what's in the chat box.
Okay, sounds good. I'll just go in chronological order. So starting with Jordan and Ryan's presentation, one of the questions that we received based off of Jordan's example was, does the hourly value of time change by region in the country?
So, so we used to allow applicants to use a local value of time, but in recent updates to the DOT guidance over the last maybe like 4 years or so, we've just recommended that all of our applicants use the values of time in Appendix A, just for consistency across applications.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then the next question, same for the same presentation. Would the travel time savings and OMM costs increase over time? May have missed if this is a static in the example for simplicity.
Yeah, that was definitely done just for simplicity. You definitely have situations where the O&M costs would increase potentially under both the build and the no build scenario, right? You could have no build scenario, like rehabilitation costs that maybe are foregone in the project scenario. So you would expect in a lot of cases there would be growth in different costs and benefits, but it was purely to keep the math in the example as simple as possible.
One thing I'll just add, do not inflate costs over time. So the value of travel time should be constant. You shouldn't inflate that because that's expressed in constant 2022 dollars. And similarly for inflation, you shouldn't assume like a 3 or 4% inflation rate for O&M costs. Keep it in the constant 2022 dollars.
Yeah, we want all costs and benefits in the analysis to be in like the same dollar year. So that's with the effects of inflation removed from the analysis.
Fantastic. Next question. I should probably already know this, but why do we need discount costs and benefits in the first place?
So discounting, that's a great question. Discounting is the sort of a way of accounting for people's time preferences, right? So the example I often use is, you would like an ice cream cone today rather than getting an ice cream cone next week. But what if I were to offer you, 2 ice cream cones next week instead of 1 ice cream cone today, right? So there's probably a point at which, right, like you might be like, you know what, I'll wait like another week to get, more ice cream cones. And so, the same is true with costs and benefits. So those that are incurred nearer in time, we tend to value them higher than those that are further away in time. So it's an adjustment that accounts for society's sort of, we call them, the fancy term is like intertemporal preferences, but it's kind of how we make trade-offs in time, and we can observe those trade-offs in different financial markets to get some estimate of what people's discounting behavior actually is.
Cool, thank you. And then I'll hand it off to Ryan for any hands raised.
Yes, we do have somebody. Let me take off the mute, request unmute. Go ahead.
It's Mohit here, and the question I have, it is for TUI. So I'm in the process now to apply for a CTC grant, which is Local Partnership Program, and I have to do this analysis, but that street is an arterial. It is neither a freeway, expressway, or the conventional highway. So the question for you is, what type of road should I define inside that 1B highway design and highway design and traffic data?
Could you repeat the second part of the question again?
So you know how you define the roadway type in this spreadsheet, and the type of roadway I have on my project is the arterial inside the city. It is not a freeway or expressway. So how should I use this in that case?
We currently don't have the arterial analysis yet. It is one of our items to be upgraded in the future CalBC models. So with that said, user can make certain assumption, for your grant. And this is a local partnership or local street and road program are you applying for?
Local partnership program.
Local partnership. So local partnership do require CalBC, but local road and street and road does not. And some people use the road model, road user cost model for that. So local partnership, there are certain assumptions that you can make. And probably be better if you send an email to us at eab@ca.gov. So that we can look more, and then if you have any literatures, we can look into it and help you. But there are certain aspects that that you can tie in and claim your benefits, such as signals. If your project is located along the highway, and if there's any signal improvements, is there on ramp, off ramp leading to your arterial, and you can set it up partially as that. There are a standalone tool for emission. So I've seen people do a lot of projects where they analyze the buses in the arterial road, but not on the freeway. And they can assume, with their fleet not having gasoline, or they're moving to cleaner engine like a ZEF buses or something, they can make some assumption, and they can use our standalone model and calculate the saving on the emission on that. but without seeing the particular email from you or any kind of fact sheet or document on how to set up the project, it's kind of hard. So
Okay.
you know, if you don't mind, if you can send us
Yeah.
that, and we'll be more than happy to take a look at that.
I appreciate
And
it.
please state your type of grant application and the deadline too, because right now we're working on TSIP and SCCP, so those are like October, November. So if your deadline is somewhere after that, please state that, so that give us some time to do our research.
Yes, so this is upcoming. It will be November 20th, and
Okay.
I will certainly send you guys an email on that email ID as you mentioned, and I'm hoping to get an answer or at least the directions to figure this out. I
Yeah.
appreciate the information.
Yeah, just want to reiterate what we said, because we have so many projects that we are reviewing within this, let's say, 2-3 weeks to meet the deadlines. We are answering projects according to how they come in, right? So if you send something like today or tomorrow, you might not get answered right away because we have some things that we have before, but we certainly get back to you.
I understand that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. I included in the link a poll EV for participants to just click and just give me your opinion. It's just one question. We're asking about what I did mention about the online tool or a regular Excel tool. Just, if you can click on this, just to give us some insight. Thank you.
All right, so moving along, I don't have any other hands raised, so I'll kick it back to Jelena if there's some more chat questions.
Yes, so this next question is for Gilberto and Tui. So one question is there a specific timeline to build CalBC to support rail projects?
Okay, so you're saying if we have a timeline that we're working, well, actually, yes, we have some funding granted to us this year, and we are in the process now of procuring a consultant that's going to be helping us externally, and also we have our data branch offices that are also helping us to enhance CalBC as well. But definitely with the consultant, we're looking at creating a standalone rail model as well. Hopefully, if depends on how everything works by maybe the end of or the fall of 2025, we'll be able to have something if everything works fine.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think that's all the time we have for questions, so I'm going to bring it back to Vanessa.
Thank you, everyone. And we do want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we definitely will be following up with everyone who asked questions that we didn't get to, and we may also be including them in our published FAQ document, so everyone is aware of the answers. Okay, so now we are on our last agenda item, next steps and adjournment. And just a little refresher, today's meeting is part of a webinar series with only one session left. Our last Federal Grants 101 session in winter will be about what happens after getting an award, how Caltrans can assist you, some successful applicants currently going through the process, and more. And for next steps, I will be sending out our presentation materials via email, and they will be shared on our website as well. I will be uploading the recording of this webinar online. Our FAQ document will be uploaded on our website in the next coming weeks. And lastly, we will send you a meeting invite to our last session once we have the date locked in. And just like in the past few webinars, there will be a short survey after this meeting ends that should just open up automatically on your end. And one of the questions is if you would like to receive an invite to our last webinar. But you're also welcome to reach out to me directly to let me know. And before we leave, I wanted to provide a few resources to you. If you have attended our past sessions, these should look very familiar. Nothing has changed here. I listed here some web pages that house a lot of information relating to federal grants. And in addition to that, we also send out the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also called IJA, biweekly newsletter, which includes great information on active and upcoming notices of funding opportunities. It's a really great resource. You can use your phone's camera to scan the QR code to sign up, and we will also post the links to everything in the chat box. And obviously, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And before I close out, Gilberto, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, just one last plea. Only nine people have checked on the link. If we could do one more click on the last link that we have in the chat box, that would be a great help to us.
And maybe we can also send that out later.
Yeah, you could send it out too.
Perfect. All right, and this marks the end of our webinar. I want to thank our speakers for being here today and answering all of your questions. And I also want to thank you all for attending. I hope this was really helpful to you. I'm gonna stop the recording.